The central government has consolidated 29 central labor acts into the four labor codes. This reform simplified complex regulations, improve compliance, ease of doing business, and extend the social security to the organizer sector. Codes are the Code on the Wages 2019, the Industrial Relations Code 2020, the Code on Social Security 2020, the Organizational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. First one is the Code on Wages 2019. This code replaces four acts: the Payment of Wages Act 1936, the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Payment of Bonus Act 1965, the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. ये हम ऐसे याद रख सकते हैं, पहले वेजेस एक्ट आया, फिर मिनिमम वेजेस एक्ट आया, फिर बोनस एक्ट आया और फिर इक्वल रेम्यूनरेशन एक्ट आया 1976. New definition of the Validity and prohibition. The notice is valid for 60 days. Strikes are prohibited during the pendency of conciliation proceedings and for 7 days after their conclusions, and during the pendency of proceedings before a tribunal and for 60 days after. Definition of expanded to include concerted casual leaves on a given day by 50% or more workers, effectively bringing mass casual leave protests under the ambit of strike regulations. Penalties. The penalty for an illegal strike has been increased significantly from the meager rupees 50 under the 1947 Industrial Disputes Act to fines up to rupees 10,000 or imprisonment serving as a strong deterrent. पेनल्टी को भी 50 से 10,000 तक बढ़ाया गया है. Workers Recycling Fund. In a progressive move acknowledging the disruption caused by the code establishes a worker recycling fund. Funding. तो फंडिंग कहाँ से आती है? Employers are required to contribute an amount equal to 15 days of last drawn wages of every retrenched worker into this fund. Purpose. The fund is credited directly to the workers to help them acquire new skills and enhance employability. अब है the Code on Social Security 2020. The code consolidates 9 acts, including the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, the Employees State Insurance Act 1948, and the Maternity Benefit Act 1961 for gigs and platform workers. The code creates a historic precedent by bringing the gig economy into the social security net. Definition. It defines gig workers, a person who performs work outside the traditional employer-employee relationship, and platform workers, a person who assesses other organizations or individuals using an online platform to provide specific services. Funding mechanism. Social security schemes for those workers will be funded by a contribution from aggregators, example Uber, Zomato. The contribution is set at 1% to 2% of the annual turnover of the aggregator, but it is capped at 5% of the amount paid or payable to the gig workers. Implementation. An Aadhaar linked universal account number will be generated for these workers to ensure profitability of benefit across platforms and locations. The Code on Social Security reduces this eligibility requirement from 5 years to 1 year. Significance. This is a crucial protection for contract workers who are often hired for short years, example 2 or 3 years, and previously lost out on gratuity. Now they will gratuity on a pro rata basis. ساکھ تہِ چھُ ژوٚلمُت وارٕ تہٕ کارٕ زٕ لایکہٕ پنٛنہِ تھوٚمُت industrial relations and labor laws. Relations have become one of the most dedicated and the complex problem of the modern meaning and concept of industrial relations. In a broad sense, the industrial relation covers all such relationships that a business enterprise maintains with the various sections of the society, such as the workers, state, customers, and the public who come into contact. In a narrow sense, it refers to all types of the relationship between the employer and the employees, trade union and management, and of workers' unions. It also includes all sorts of formal and informal relationships in an organization. Evolution of the IR in India. Initial stage अगर हम इसकी history पढ़े, initial stage 1850 to 1918 तक. This begins with the coming of the Industrial Revolution to the India, with the setting up of the cotton mill in the Mumbai 1853 and jute mills in Kolkata 1855. The plight of the workers come in light. The workers were paid very low wages, which gave rise to disputes between the management and employees. Unfortunately, Factories Act of 1881 enacted that gave certain rights to the workers. Period of progress 1919 to 1947. This period was marked with several strikes and disputes between management and employees. Various legislations like Workmen's Compensation Act 1923, Trade Union Act 1926, Trade Disputes Act 1917, and Industrial Disputes Act 1947, etc. were enacted to resolve these disputes. Period of progress. Post-independence period. This era same positive development of relations between industries and labor. Legislation like Minimum Wage Act, Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Industrial Relations Code 2019 were enacted. Minimum Wages Act, Employees State Insurance Act, and Industrial Relations Code 2019. Modern industrial relations are dynamic and more sensitive to aspirations of competing parties. Nature of industrial relation. The nature of industrial relation is multifunctional. Its nature is based on institutional factors like government policy, economic factors like capitalism, socialism, etc., technological factors like production technology. Scope of industrial relation. Features and important basis of industrial relation. One of the experts in the sport between the trade unions and management, struggle between the trade unions and management. Objectives of industrial relation. Employees and employers establish proper channels of communication between workers and management, safeguard interests of workers and the management, avoid industrial conflicts, ensure workers' contribution in the decision making, enhance productivity and efficiency of an organization. Achievements of these objectives is based on the following principles: ensures availability of the government facilities, opinion of collective bargaining in settlements of the issues and disputes, understanding the cooperation between management and the trade unions, mechanism to prevent industrial conflicts. Sociological approach, human relation approach, Gandhian approach, and the social ethical approach. Giri approach there was psychological approach. Reason for strained industrial relation between the employers and the employees can be understood by studying differences in the perception of issues, situations, and persons between the management groups and labor groups. Sociological approach. Sociological factors largely includes factors like value system, customs, norms, symbols, attitudes, and perceptions of both labor and management. An industrial developer and new industrial comes social pattern which provides the general new relationship institutions. Current approach believes that many of the evils of the modern world have this emphasizes employees should be regarded as equal with the shareholder and they should have therefore every right to possess an accurate knowledge of the transition of the means. Social ethical principles of the industry, roles of the various stakeholders, maintain industrialization role of Employers organizations in India. All India Organization of Employees is set up हुई है 1932 में. Employers Federation of India EFI. The Employees Federation of India was established in 1933 as an association of autonomous organization of industries and was set up with the purpose of protecting, promoting, and championing the interests of employers, mainly in the areas of human resource, industrial relations, labor problems. Employers Federation of India plays a special role in the apex body of the employers organization in industries on matters concerning labor, human resource management, industrial relations, and other related issues. The Federation represents the employers concerned and lives at the various tripartite forms of the Ministry of Labour, such as Standing Labour Committee, Indian Labour Conference, and other industry committees. Public Standing Conference of Public Enterprises Scope. Then apex professional organization, central government public enterprises. Scope came in existence on 10th of April 1973 and was formally given recognition as an apex body of the central public sector enterprises in November 1976 by an early decision of Union Cabinet. This of one of its tasks as both internal and external to the public enterprise and other organizations, corporate bodies, institutions which are its members. It will endeavor to assist in the it will help improve state incoming compliance provident fund. It is a statutory Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952. It assists the Central Board of Trustees in administering a compulsory contribution provident fund scheme, a pension scheme, and an insurance scheme for the workforce engaged in the organized sector in India. International Labour Organization. International Labour Standards. It is the only tripartite United Nations agency that brings together representatives of government, employers, and workers to jointly shape policies and programs promoting the decent work for all. The ILO, International Labour Organization, was established on 19th of April 1919 by the Versailles Peace Conference as an autonomous body associated with the Leagues of Nations. Some important points about the ILO. India becomes member of ILO in 1919 as an original signatory to the Treaty of Peace. The driving forces for the ILO, International Labour Organization's creation, arose from the security, humanitarian, political, and economic considerations. Underlying the ILO's work is the importance of cooperation between the government and employers and workers' organization in fostering the social and economic progress. The ILO aims to ensure that it serves the need of working women and men by bringing together government employers and workers to set labor standards, develop policies, and devise programs. ILO is attempting to promote worldwide respect for the freedom and dignity of the working men. Objectives of ILO. The objectives of the ILO are enumerated in the preamble to its constitution and in the Declaration of Philadelphia 1944, supplemented by the Article 427 of the Peace Treaty of Versailles 1919. The emblem affirms, whereas universal and lasting peace can be established only if it is based upon the social justice, whereas condition of labor exist involving such injustice, hardship, and action to the large number of employees. The Declaration of laid 10 objectives was further promoting among the nations of the world. These are raise the standard of living, the employment of the workers in the occupation in which they can have the satisfaction of being the provision as a means to the attachment of this end. Earning bonuses and other conditions of the work. And the effective recognition labor laws. Labor legislation is a hostile term in to include all the laws related to the employment, working conditions, wages and salaries, social security and installation of the workers. Concept of labor legislation. Employment labor legislation. Classification of the labor legislation. Laws related to the wages. Payment of wages of 1936, wages of 1948, payment of bonuses of 1965, and Working Journalists Fixation of Rates of Wages Act 1958, Laws related to working hours, conditions in the service and employment, Factories Act 1948, Dock Workers Regulation Employment Act 1948, Plantation Labor Act 1951, Mines Act 1952, Working Journalists and Other Newspaper Employees Condition of Service and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1955, Mines and Mineral Development and Regulations Act 1957, Merchant Shipping Act 1955, Motor Transport Workers Act 1961, BD and Workers Condition of Employment Act 1966, Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act 1970, Sale Promotion Employees Act 1976, Interstate Migrant Workmen Regulations of Employment and Conditions of the Service Act 1979, Sign Workers and the Cinema Theatre Workers Regulation of Employment Act 1981, Dangerous Machines Regulation Act 1983, Dog Workers Safety, Health and Welfare Act 1986. Out of the manual schemes around the construction drive Prohibition Act 1993, Building and Other Construction Workers Regulation of Employment and Condition of Service Act 1996, Building and Other Construction Workers Act 1996, Service Act 1979, Dock Workers Regulation of Employment Inapplicability of the Major Ports Act 1997, Private Security Agency Regulation Act 2005, Equal and Empowerment of the Woman, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, and Act 1976, the Remuneration Act 1976, and Maternity Benefit Act 1961. Laws regulate the primary and the disadvantaged sections of the society. Bonded labor system abolition Act 1976, Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986, and the Child Labor Act 1933. Factories of 1948 to Plantation Labor Act 1951, Motor Transport Workers Act 1961, Shops and Establishment Act BDM, Cigar Workers Act 1966, Wage Rate, the Payment of Wages Act 1936, Minimum Wage Act 48, Payment of Bonus Act 65, Equal Remuneration Act 76, Social Security, Workmen's Compensation Act 23, Employees State Insurance Act 48, Coal Miners Act 1948, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 52, Maternity Benefit Act 61, and Payment of Gratuity Act 72. Employee Welfare Limestone and Dolomite Mine Labor Welfare Fund Act 1972. Introduction of labor legislations. The history of labor legislation in India can be traced back to the pre-independent India, where the laws were enacted by the British to safeguard the interests of the British employees. These laws were enacted keeping in mind British political economy. Indian textile industries was offering tough competition to the British textiles. This led to the introduction of the Factories Act for the first time. Trade Disputes Act 1929 of the employer and employees. This act also laid down the provisions of the restraining the rights of the strike and lockouts. However, this act was repealed in the post-independence era, and Industries Dispute Act 1947 was brought into force. This act focused on promoting partnership between employer and employees. Bombay was a pioneer in the formulation of the legislation on the enactment of the many laws concerning social regulation of labor employment. India has been providing for core labor standards of ILO for welfare of workers and to protect their interests. Social justice and the labor legislation. Social justice aims to treat all the workers equally irrespective of their gender, caste, culture, and religion. It is based on the fact that the workers can claim their share of wealth which they have helped to generate. ILO has a role in promoting the social justice among the workers. It has tried international standards for providing social justice and equality to the workers. The ILO Declaration on the Social Justice for a Fair Globalization was signed in 2008 by the representatives of the government, employers, and workers from all ILO member states. The declaration promotes the decent work through a coordinated approach for achieving four strategic objectives: employment, social protection, social dialogues, and the fundamental principle and rights at work. The Social Justice Declaration is the third major state principles and policies adopted of the International Labour Conference. It builds on the declaration concerning the aims and purposes of the ILO International Labour Organization Declaration of the Philadelphia 1944 and the ILO Declaration of the Fundamental Principles and Rights at Work 1998. Indian Constitution and the Labour Laws. The legislations in India can be categorized as follows. Labor law enacted by the central government, where the central government has the sole responsibility for the enforcement. Labor laws enacted by the central government and enforced by both both by central and the state governments. Labor laws enacted by the central government and enforced by the state government. Labor laws enacted and enforced by various state governments which apply to the respective states. Labor has been included under the concurrent list third in the seventh schedule of the Constitution of India. A concurrent subject is a matter for which both state and central government can enact laws. However, in the case of labor legislations, there is clause which says that the state act a labor cannot enact a law which is repugnant to the center. The following are trade union, industrial, and the labor dispute. These are item number: social security and social insurance, employment and unemployment. These are the items of 23. Welfare of labor, including conditions of work, provident fund, employer's liability, workman's compensation, invalidity, and the old age pension and maternity benefit. These are the union list includes the matters on which the parliament has exclusive power to legislate. The matter that falls under the union list includes the following: regulation of the labor and the safety and minus and the these are item number 55. Industrial dispute concerning the union employees. These are item number 61. Union agencies and institutions for professional, vocational, and the technical training. 65. Important and labor legislations. The Factories Act 1948 into force on 1st April 1949. It is a social legislation dealing with occupational safety, health, and welfare of workers at workplace. It is applicable to all places where 10 or more workers are working. The Mines Act 1952, Factories Act 48, Mines Act 52. It came into force on 1st July 1952. It deals with regulating the health and safety of the laborers working in coal, metallic, ferrous, and oil mines. The Interstate Migrant Workmen, Regulation of Employment and the Condition of Service Act 1979. This act aims to regulate the employment of interstate migrant workmen and to provide for their condition of service and for matters connected therewith. This act is applicable to every establishment in which 5 or more interstate migrant workmen are employed. Contract Labor Law Regulation and Abolition Act 1971. The aim of the act is to prevent exploitation of the contract labor and also to introduce better conditions at the work of the contractual labor. This act is applicable to every establishment in which 20 or more workmen are employed. The Building and Other Construction Workers Regulation of Employment and Conditions of Service Act 1986. This act came into the force on the 1st March 1996. It aims to regulate the employment and the conditions of the service of building and other construction. The Child Labor Prohibition Act 1986. This act aims to prohibit the engagement of children in certain employment and to regulate the conditions of the work of children in certain other employment. Minimum Wage Act 1948. This act aims to set the minimum wages that must be paid to the skilled and unskilled laborers. Payment of the wages below the minimum wage rate amounts to forced labor. Question number one. The type of bargaining in which the workers demand or agree upon in return for increase in efficiency on their part is called productive bargaining. Agreed upon in return for increase in efficiency on their part is called productive bargaining. Demands are agreed upon in return for increase in efficiency. Question second. There is a process mostly followed by the management in conflict, whereby management tried to influence one or more union members by making them offer for benefit in exchange of information. This practice is unethical. What is the practice called? Tries to influence one or more union members by making them offer for benefit in exchange of information. This practice is unethical. What is the practice called? Competition. Situation when the management tries to influence one or more by offering them promotion or other benefits in exchange for the information about the union strategy, or influencing workers so as to get advantages during the negotiation process. Which of the following types of bargaining creates a win-win situation for both parties? Distributive bargaining, integrative bargaining, attitudinal structuring, or good faith bargaining. Let's see option B, integrative bargaining. Integrative bargaining involves a situation in which either both the parties have something to gain or at least one of the parties loses anything. Thus, it is a win-win situation for both. Attitudinal structuring. Attitudinal structuring means the attitude and belief of the workers and management regarding each other so as to create. This is required in the following situation. When it is a lose-lose situation, that is when none of the party is ready to accommodate the interests of the other party. In such a situation, negotiations comes to a dead end and resultantly both sides have to lose. When there is a win-lose situation, that generates bitterness in the losing party. Under both the situations, the involved party needs to change their attitude in order to avoid generation of any hostility. Distributive bargaining. Distributive bargaining involves bargaining over economic issues like wages, salaries, bonus. Here, one party gains at the cost of the other party, so it results in a win-lose situation and hence is a zero sum game. Such a situation generates negative feeling in the losing side and may end breed mistrust and unhealthy labor management relations. This type of bargaining is also known as conjunctive bargaining, distributive bargaining, or conjunctive bargaining, interactive bargaining. This type of bargaining involves a situation in which either both the parties have something to gain or at least none of the party loses anything. In which either both the parties have something to gain or at least none of the parties lose anything. This is the win-win situation for both. For example, during economic slowdown, management may demand increase in the working hours in return for the job security. This type of bargaining is sometimes known as the cooperative or interest-based bargaining, good faith bargaining. The principle of good faith bargaining is that both parties meet each other with the intent to constructively communicate with each other over the issues of dispute and make honest attempts to arrive at a collective or agreement. This is a readiness to make concessions, though it neither requires any party to shelve its own interest, nor does it compel any party to necessarily agree to a proposal, nor does it require any of the parties to make any undue concessions. Distributive bargaining, interactive bargaining, which are the following type of bargaining creates a win-win situation. Interactive bargaining, mutual bargaining, lose to lose, good faith bargaining, distributive bargaining, win-wins, interactive bargaining, mutual. Number 4. Which of the following correctly describes surface bargaining? It is a bargaining in which the meeting is simple and eyewash without any intention of reaching an agreement. It means changing the attitude and beliefs of workers. Simple and eyewash without any intention of reaching an agreement. It means ठीक है each other so much mutual trust. Surface bargaining is a bargaining in which the meeting is simply an eyewash without an intention of reaching an agreement. Question number 5. Discipline dash discipline is the discipline observed in the fear of punishment. Fear of punishment. Negative discipline is the discipline observed in the fear of punishment. Negative discipline is somewhat traditional approach under which employees adhere to the rules and regulations and the fear of punishment. Positive discipline implies discipline without punitive actions. It involves creation of an atmosphere in the organization whereby employees willingly conform to the establishment rules and regulations. That's very much. See. Dash refers to such violation of or non-conformity to formal or informal rules, regulations in an organization. Discipline refers to such violation of or non-conformity to the formal or no, informal rules, regulations in an organization. It is C. Indiscipline. Indiscipline refers to the such violation of or non-conformity to the formal or informal rules and regulations in an organization. Indiscipline unfair practices, policy, procedures, like the non-compliance with the wage legislations, or the promotion and the transfer policies, absence of the code of conduct, lack of effective leadership, communication barrier, or the politicized trade unionism. What is the latent term for the statement that both the parties should be before giving a decision? Audit, altern, pattern. This means hear the other side. In other words, this pertains to the rule of fair hearing or the rule that no one should be condemned unheard. No one should be judged in their own cause. Acutus reus refers to the act of omission that comprises the physical element of a crime as required by the state. There is a type of conflict which encourages the workers group, group to achieve higher performance and work for attainment of the goal. Which type of conflict is this? Functional conflict. This type of conflict which encourages the workers group to achieve higher performance. Functional, functional conflict encourages the group to work for the attainment of its goals, improve the performance, contribution to personal growth of the members and to the overall organizational growth. In which type of strike, workers do not stop the work as such but reduces the volume of output. Stay in strike, slow down strike, sit down strike, sit in strike. Of strike, the striking workers remain on their jobs. They do not stop work as such but restrict the volume of output produced as such but restrict the volume of output produced in an organized manner. This is harmful because during a strike, much of the machinery can be fully turned off. However, during go slow, the machinery is kept going on at a reduced speed. This is often extremely damaging to the machinery. A day strike is one in which the striking workers report to their duties but refuse to work and they do not leave the plant premises. Stay in strike. Stay in strike is one in which the striking workers report their duties but refuse to work and they do not leave the plant premises. A stay in strike is one in which the strike workers report to their duties but refuse to work and they do not leave their plant premises. The owner of the plant is deprived of the use of the plant and the machinery, and further operations are at the halt. The owner has a incur additional expenditure on the safety and security of the plant and machinery when the striking workers remains inside the factory or establishment. Stay in strike. Go to workplace but do not work. In this type of strike, workers perform their duty literally in accordance with the rules prescribed for the purpose. General strike, work to rule strike, ordinary strike, or sit in strike. B. Work to rule strike. Work to rule is a kind of concerted activity in which employees remain on job but perform their work literally in accordance with the rules prescribed for the purpose. These these workers decline to do anything not mentioned therein, take permissible time off the job, and perform their work to the letter in such a manner that it results in slowing the work down. Work to rule is a kind of concerted activity in which employees remain on job but perform their work literally in accordance with the rules prescribed for the. In a dash, a group of workers keep control over the production facility. These workers stop production and refuse access to the to the owners or to anyone else desiring to work. Sit down strike. In a sit down strike, a group of workers keep control over the production facilities. These workers stop production and refuse access to the owners or to anyone else desiring to work. In a sit-down strike, a group of workers keep control over the production facility. These workers stop production and refuse access to the owners or to anyone else desiring to work. A sit-down strike is also known as the pen-down or the tool-down strike. Work stop plus owners not allowed. Those strikes which are not against the principal employer but against a third party are known as secondary strikes. Secondary strikes are in which pressure is not applied against the primary employer but against some third person who has good trade relations with the employer, and thus the later meaning of the jurisdictional strike. D is the correct option. It is the outcome of a dispute between the members. Jurisdictional strike. It is an output of the dispute between the members of the different unions or work assignments or disagreements between two or more unions as to which of them should have the exclusive right to bargain collectively with the employer. Jurisdictional strike is an outcome of a dispute between the members of different unions over work assignments or disagreement between two or more unions as to which of them should have the exclusive right to bargain collectively with the employer. Jurisdictional strike is an outcome of dispute members of the different unions over the work. Jurisdictional strike is an outcome of a dispute between the of the different unions or work assignments or the disagreement between two or more unions as to which of them should have the exclusive right to bargain collectively with the employer. Such strikes can occur only in such establishments that have multiple trade unions which are rivals. Inter-union strike, jurisdictional strike, inter-union strike. Which of the labor welfare theory tells that the management takes welfare activities in fear of penal provisions in case of the non-compliance? Policy theory, placating theory, philanthropic theory, functional theory. Placating theory, policy theory. In policy theory, welfare activities are taken by the management in fear of compliance. The state must enact legislations that would coerce employers to provide for workers' welfare in the form of minimum wages, health care, good working conditions, etc. In philanthropic theory, this theory is based on the assumption that the welfare measures are undertaken with the objective of providing benefits to the workers for improving their condition. Many philanthropists believe that investment in the labor welfare will be ultimately beneficial for industry. This theory is based on the assumption that the welfare measures are undertaken with the objective of providing the benefit to the workers for improving their condition. In placating theory, the placating theory believes that as workers are becoming more aware of their rights, they are adopting a militant attitude to pressurize the employers for higher wages and improved working conditions. In such situations, undertaking welfare measures can appease workers and peaceful industrial relations can be attained. In functional theory, this theory rests on the assumption that welfare measures help to preserve the efficiency and productivity of workers, also known as efficiency theory. According to which of the following labor welfare theory, the employers act as a guardian to the employees and provide them welfare? Employers act as guardian to the employees and provide them welfare. Paternalistic. Paternalistic. The paternalistic approach propagates an employer as the guardian of worker whose undertaking welfare activity the guardian to provide welfare. The dash theory believes that as workers are becoming more aware of their rights, they are adopting a militant attitude to pressurize employees for the higher wages and improved working conditions. ये हमने अभी पढ़ा placating. पैटर्नल तो ये था यहाँ पर नहीं, ये placating है, ये सी policy theory, fear of compliance, policy theory, philanthropists, welfare measures, placating theory, aware of their rights, their militant attitude, in paternalistic guardian or father of the workers. ठीक. Which theory is also known as efficiency theory? Optional D. efficiency theory. Religious theory. This theory is based on the belief that doing good deeds is an investment. In this context, investing in the labor welfare is a good deed that would reap fruits in future, providing benefit to workers in the form of canteens, health benefits, crutches, etc., can also help in the atonement of the sins. In patternistic theory, allocating theory, and functional theory, this theory rests on the assumption that welfare measures help us in preserve the efficiency and the productivity of the workers, also known as efficiency theory. The employer owns the property and profits which he uses for the benefit of workers and the society as a whole. The employer must take care of the interests of workers, which labor welfare theory is mentioned here. Trusteeship. Trusteeship. Property. Trusteeship. According to this theory, welfare activities are undertaken in the fear of the concept of the karma, a religious theory. As per the International Labour Organization, workmen's participation in management has been classified into the three types. Which of the following is an exception to it? Direct participation, representative participation, and financial participation, intermediate participation. As per the ILO, WPM have been classified as the direct participation, representative participation, or the financial participation. Direct participation. Direct participation may take place through teams and workers assemblies consisting of all employees. Indirect or the representative participation, workers may participate indirectly through their trade unions, work councils, joint consultative committees, and various other committees like the occupational health and the safety committees, employee representation, and board and stuff. Financial participation. Such participation takes place through profit sharing or stock ownership or various combinations of these forms. Works committee, safety committee, and the canteen management committee are examples of workers' participation in management. Workers' education scheme, cooperatives, workers' suggestion scheme, corporate participation in the management. Workers' committee, safety committee, and the canteen management committee are examples of the workers' participation in management. 23. According to the scene, which of the following is not a type of workers' participation in management? Financial participation, intermediate participation. Financial participation is a participation as per the ILO. Financial participation. Such participation comprises information sharing and suggestion scheme. Intermediate participation involves collective bargaining in both traditional and the non-traditional areas and the consultations on the restricted issues. Real participation. Such participation covers consultation on unrestricted issues and co-determination on both restricted and unrestricted issues. Real participation gives workers voice in every aspect of a running of an enterprise and hence may be equated to the democracy. The the dash theory believes in going deep to investigate the root cause of an accident rather than the obvious cause. Symptom versus cause. The symptom versus cause theory believes in going deep to investigate the root cause of an accident. Mm, Going deep in investigation the root cause of an accident rather than the obvious cause. Symptom versus cause theory. Usually, when investigating accident, we tend to fasten upon the obvious cause of the accident to the neglect of the root cause. Unsafe acts and the unsafe conditions are the symptoms, the proximate causes, and not the root cause of the accident. Are the symptoms, the proximate cause, and not the root cause of the accident. Theory. Biased liability. Bias liability theory is based on the view that once a worker is involved in an accident, the chances of the same worker becoming involved in further accidents are either increased or decreased as compared to the rest of the workers. Biased liability theory is based on the view that once a worker is involved in an accident, the chances of the same worker becoming involved in future accidents are either increased or decreased as compared to the rest of the workers. The view that once a worker is involved in an accident, the chance of the same worker becoming involved in a future accident. Biased liability theory is based on the view that once this theory contributes very little, if anything at all, towards developing preventive actions for avoiding accidents. Predatory unionism. It lacks certain principles and will follow the line below and tell which of the unionism are we talking about. It lacks certain principles and mostly concentrates on the short run objectives. It can adopt to any method which may deliver the good and it sticks at nothing. Predatory unionism. This kind of unionism does not generate any pre-planned ideology. It lacks certain principles and mostly concentrates on the short-run objectives. It can adopt any method which may deliver the good and it sticks at nothing. Something it operates by means of bribes, extortion, sale of protection, or the monopoly combinations with employers. Friendly or uplift unionism. The uplift unionism is idealistic in nature. It encourages to raise the moral, intellectual, and the social life of the workers and their contribution to a better life in terms of the personal dignity, leisure, and culture, security, and the better living standard. The preference of these unions rely on the weapons of the political action, mutual insurance program, and the cooperative enterprises. It is the conservative and the law abiding and employs the method of collective bargaining. It is a strong learning towards the cooperatives, profit sharing, political actions, and the group insurance. Revolutionary unionism, premiumism, revolutionary unionism, independent unionism. It is extremely radical. According this kind of unionism is completely parasitic in nature. It its existence is due to the support of the employers. It exists in two forms. One is that of the company unionism, which depends solely on the employer for its growth and development and does not serve the interests of the workers unless they oppose to the interest of the management. And second is that of the other union label, it depends upon the union label being imprinted on the products. The democratic concept of labor is also known as citizenship concept. Democratic concept. It is also known as citizenship concept. The workers are considered as citizens of the industry in which they are employed and entitled to a right to have voice in determining the rules and regulations under which they work. The result of this realization was industrial democracy. Partnership concept. The partnership relationship implies mutual responsibilities as well as the sharing of the fruits of the joint endeavors. The earliest efforts to translate this idea into the action were the stock ownership plans. Some argue that the ownership concept is fallacious as there being no mutuality of interest between the owners. Charity concept. According to this, it was the duty of those who were in fortunate position to assist those who are in need. The partnership relationships imply mutual responsibility as well as the partnership charity. According to this, it was the duty of those who were in fortunate position to assist. And commodity concept. Which of the following is not a UN security measure? Open shop. An open shop is a place of employment at which one is not required to join or financially support a union as a condition of hiring or continued employment. This is not a trade union security measure. Closure shop. The employer agrees to hire only union members. Closure shop. Union members. This employment in which one is not required to join to support a union. Open shop. Union shop. The employers may hire anyone regardless of their union membership status, but the employees must join the union within a set time period, 30 days. An employee must resign from the union, must be dismissed. Agency shop. The employer may hire anyone regardless of their union membership status, and the employees need not join the union. However, all non-union employees must pay a fee known as the agency fee to the union to cover the cost of the collective bargaining. An employee who resigns from the union may not be dismissed but must pay the agency fee. As per the Payment of Wages Act 1936, in case of the termination of employment by the employer, wages earned by the person shall be paid before the expiry of seventh working day after the date of such termination, 10th working day after the date of such termination, last working day of the month, second working day after the date of such termination. As per the Payment of Wages Act 1936, where the employment of any person is terminated by the employer, the wages shall be paid before the expiry of second working day for the day on which his employment is terminated. As per the Payment of Wages Act, as per the Payment of the Wages Act 1936, which one of the following is the total amount of fine that can be imposed on an employed person in one wage period? 5% of the wage, 7% of the wage, 3% of the wage payable, 9% of the wage payable to him in respect of the that wage period. The answer is 3. As per the Payment of Wages Act 1936, The total amount of the fine that can be imposed on any employed person in one wage period shall be 3% of the wage payable in respect of that wage period. Provision of the Payment of Wages Act 1936 shall be made applicable to an employed person drawing a monthly salary not exceeding 24,000. The provisions of the Payment of Wages Act 1936 applicable to the wage payable to an employed person if not exceeding 24,000 per month. Under the provision of the Payments of the Wages Act 1936, no fine imposed or shall be recovered after the expiry of 90 days. No fine imposed or shall be recovered after the expiry of 90 days. Under the provisions of the Payment of the Wages Act 1936, no fine imposed or shall be recovered by installments or after the expiry of 90 days from the date on which it was imposed. Under the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act 1936, no fine shall be imposed on an employed person who is under the age of 15, 16, 17, 18, 15 years. Under the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act, no fine shall be imposed. 15 years. As per the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act 1936, no wage period shall exceed 1 month. As per the Payment of Wages Act 1936, no wage period shall exceed 1 month. Which of the following, what are the maximum period in which the appropriate government shall review and revise the minimum rate of wages under the Minimum Wages Act 1948? Minimum wages, D, 5 years. As per the Minimum Wages Act 1948, the appropriate government shall review at such intervals as it may think fit, such interval not exceeding 5 years. The minimum rate of wages so fixed and revise the minimum rate. The Minimum Wages Act 1948 was enacted for the purpose of fixing of minimum wages of the wages in the scheduled employment. Minimum wages of the wages in the every employment. Minimum wage was enacted for the purpose of fixing minimum rate. Under the provisions of the Minimum Wages Act 1948, adolescent means a person who has completed his 14 years of age and has not completed his 18 years. B. Adolescent means a person who has completed his 14 years of completed 18. Under the provision of the minimum age 1948, child means a person who has not completed his 18th year of age, 16th year of age, 10th year of age, 14th who has not completed his 14th year of age. As per the provision of the Minimum Wage Act 1948, payment of work on a day of rest shall not be less than Act 1948 payment of work on a day of rest shall not be less than daily overtime rate. As per the provision of the Minimum Wage Act 1948, in regards to any establishment employment minimum rate in respect of which have been fixed, the fixed government may provide for payment not less than overtime rate. ठीक है. 40. As per the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, standing order shall come in operation on the expiry of 30 days. Standing order. Date of operation and the standing order. Standing order shall come into operation on the expiry of 30 days from the date on which the authenticated copies thereof are sent. As per the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act of 1946, standing order finally certified shall be subject to the modification only after 2 6 months. Duration of modification of the standing order. Standing order finally certified under this act shall not except on agreement between the employer and the workman, trade union, or other representative body of the workman be liable to modification until the expiry of the 6 months. The last modification thereof come into operation as employer of the workman or a trade union. As per the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, subsistence allowance for the first 90 days of suspension shall be paid at the rate of 50% of wages. Subsistence allowance. Payment of subsistence allowance where any workman is suspended by the employer pending investigation or inquiry into the complaints or the charges of the misconduct against him, the employer shall pay to such workman subsistence allowance at the rate of 50% of the wages which the workman was entitled to immediately preceding the date of such suspension for the first 90 days of suspension. As per the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, subsistence allowance for the period below 90 days of the suspension, the rate of 75 below. Payment of suspension, wherein is when suspended by the employer, investigation of the inquiry into the company misconduct, the employer shall to such subsistence allowance at the rate of 50%. 50% of wages which the workman was entitled to immediately preceding the date of such suspension for the first 90 days of the suspension at the rate of the 75% of the such wages for the remaining period of suspension if the delay in the completion of the disciplinary proceedings against such workman is not directly attributable to the conduct of the such workman. As per the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, if any dispute arises regarding the subsistence allowance payable to the workman, The workman or the employer concerned may refer the dispute to labor court. Labor Court Punishment. Industrial Dispute Act, constituted under Industrial Dispute Act 1947, within the local limits of whose jurisdiction the industrial establishment within such workman is employed and situated in the labor court to which the dispute is so referred shall, after giving the parties the opportunity of brief. Question number 45. As per the Trade Union Act of 1926, Trade Union Act of 1926, minimum how many members are required to apply for the registration of a trade union? 7. That is 7. As per the Trade Union Act of 1926, mode of registration, any 7 or more members of the trade union may, by subscribing their name to the rules of the trade union and by otherwise complying with the rules of the act, apply for the registration of the trade union. Whereas an application has been made for the registration of the trade union, such application shall not be deemed to have become invalid merely by reasons of the fact that at any time after the date of the application, but before the registration of the trade union, some of the applicants but not to exceed the floor of the total number of persons who made the application have seen. As per the Trade Union Act of 1926, what is the minimum age of a person who may become a member of the trade union? C. 15 years. Right of minors to the membership of the trade union. Any person who has attained the age of 15 years may be the member of a registered trade union subject to any rule of the trade union to the contrary. According to the provisions of the Trade Union Act of 1926, how many minimum votes must be recorded in favor of the proposal for the purpose of amalgamation of the trade union? Union is 60%. As per the Trade Union Act of 1926, amalgamation of the trade union, any two or more registered trade unions may become amalgamated together together as one trade union without the disclosure or the division of the funds or of such trade union or either of any of them, provided that the votes of at least one half of the members of each or every such trade union entitled to vote are recorded, and that at least 60% of the vote recorded are in favor of the proposal. At least half of the members of each or every trade union entitled to vote are recorded. 50%. And within that 50%, we should get 60% of those in favor of the proposal. As per the provision As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, which of the following person is considered as child? As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, which of the following person is considered as child? Below, person who has not completed his 15th year of age. 15th year of age. Person who has not completed his 14th year. 15th year of age. As per the provision of the Factories Act 1948, child means a person who has not completed his 15 years of age. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, which of the following person is considered as adolescent? 15 years to 18 years. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, adolescent means a person who has completed his 15th year of age but has not completed his 18th year. As per the Factories Act 1948, which of the following does not fall under the welfare facility? Spitons. So washing facility आती है, sitting facility, canteen, ये होनी चाहिए, फिर ये as per the Factories Act, which of the following facilities? Washing facility, facility for storing and dyeing clothes, facility for sitting, first aid appliances, canteen, shelter, restroom and the lunch room, patches, and other part of the health facility. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, which of the following person is adult? Person who has completed 18, who has completed 21 years of age. As per the provisions of the Factories Act, adult means a person who has completed his 18 years of age. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, no adult worker shall be required or allowed to work in the factories for more than how many hours in any week? As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, no adult worker shall be required or allowed to work in a factory for more than how many hours in a week? 48 hours. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, required to allowed to work in a factory for more than how many hours in a week? 48 hours. Weekly hours. No adult worker shall be required or allowed to work in a factory for more than 48 hours in a week. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, no adult worker shall be required or allowed to work in a factory for more than how many hours in a day? C. 9 hours. 9 घंटे ज़्यादा छुं काम करें. Daily hours. Subject to the provisions of the Section 51, no adult worker shall be required to allowed to work in a factory for more than 9 hours a day, provided that subject to the previous approval of the Chief Inspector, the daily maximum specified Really maximum specified in this section may be exceeded in order to facilitate the change of change or shift change of shift. As per the provisions of the Factory Act 1948, the period of work of an adult worker shall not spread over more than 10 hours in a day. The period of work adult worker shall not spread over more than 10.5 hours in a day. Spread hour. The period of work of an adult worker in a factory shall be so arranged that inclusive of his intervals of rest, they shall not spread over more than 10.5 hours in any day, provided that the chief inspector may for the reason increase the spread over the spread 12 hours maximum, 10.5 daily 9 hours. As per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, where a worker works in a factory for more than 9 hours in a day or for more than 48 hours in a week, he shall, in respect of overtime work, be entitled to the work at the rate of twice his ordinary rate of wages. He shall, in respect of the overtime work, be entitled to the wage at the rate of twice. Option C, twice. And 48 hours in a week, he shall, in respect of the overtime work, be entitled to the wages at the rate of twice his ordinary rate of wages. Ordinary rate of wages means the basic wages plus such allowances, including the cash equivalent of the advantages occurring through the concessional sale to the workers of food grains and other articles, as the worker is for the time being entitled to, but does not include a bonus and the wages for the overtime work, where any worker in a factory are paid on as per the provisions of the Factories Act 1948, no child shall be employed or permitted to work in any factory for more than 4.5 hours in a day in any day. No child shall be employed for more than during the night. Day explanation. The section in a period of at least 12 consecutive hours, we shall be the interval of 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The period of work of all the children shall be limited to the two shifts, which shall not overlap or spread or more than 5 hours each, and each child shall be employed in only one of the relay. We shall not accept with Which one of the following is the rate of compensation in the case of layoff under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947? 50% of the basic pay and DA. The rights of the workman laid off for the compensation. Whenever a workman other than a workman or a casual workman whose name is borne on the master roll of industry. According to the Industrial Dispute Act of 1947, temporary closing down and the permanent closing down of a place of employment are respectively referred to as C. Lockdown and closure. Lockout means temporary closing of a place of employment or the suspension of work or the refusal by an employer to continue to employ any number of persons. Him. Closure means the permanent closing down of the place of employment or the part thereof. Which one of the following is the maximum number of members of the Grievance Redressal Committee constituted under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947? Which one of the following is not an adjudicatory body under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947? C. Court of Arbitration. Court of Arbitration. Authorities under the Industrial Dispute Acts are Working Committee, Conciliation Officer, Board of Conciliation, Court of Inquiry, Labor Court, Tribunals, and the National Tribunal. Tribunal, Labor Court, C. Labor Courts, Court of Inquiry, Court of Inquiry, and National Tribunal. Thank you. Industrial relations. So the following statements. Relation traditionally focused only on the relationship between the employer and the employees. Mm, and the system model of the industrial nation involves three actors: management, workers, and the system of industrial nation includes three factors: workers and the environment. And CH3 directed by industrial policy and industrial regulatory perspective considers the conflict as a necessary outcome of the industrialization. वन का बी है क्लियर बी है तो टू ओनली है the following statement regarding in India. Consider the following trade unions in India. The first workers organization in India was Bombay Mill Hands Association. Hands Association acted solely by promoting the economic welfare of the workers and the pluralistic prospect to sports trade unionism as a response to the conflict interests. But I guess I need to put on right now. Unionism is the radical perspective.
Money making time.
They are primarily concerned with the political mobilization of the workers. They ensure workers' participation in the decision-making processes. Trade unions in India emerged in the earlier 20th century. The objective of the trade union included economic and the social welfare of workers. Concerned with the political mobilization of workers. They ensure participation in the
फोन चलेगा.
they ensure workers' participation in the decision-making process. Trade unions in India emerged in the earlier 20th century. Trade unionism. The objective of the trade union includes both economic and social welfare of the workers. तो इसका ऑप्शन कौन सा ऑप्शन है इसका? अगर यहाँ पे देखें 4 का बी है, 4 का बी है तो बी है 2, 3 and 4, 2, 3 and 4, 2, 3 and 4 delete. Fifth, the first national labor on industrial was the regulation of the contract labors, strengthening collective bargaining mechanisms, deregulation of the industrial laws and prohibition of the strikes in the public sector. इसका जो आंसर है वो है फिफ्थ का ए 1 and 2 only. Regulation of the contract labor, strengthening first national commission on the labor 1967 made recommendations on Question number 6. Which of the following principle is not associated with the labor legislations in not associated with the labor legislations in India? Social equality, social justice, profit maximization, and the workers' participation. ये तो social equality भी है, profit maximization. The Bombay Mill Hands Association was formed in Bombay Mill Hands Association was formed in 1980s. 1918, 1890. 1890 is the correct answer. The pluralistic perspective believes pluralistic perspective believes conflict on anomalies that should be eliminated. Anomalies तो industrial nations are based on the cooperation rather than conflict. Trading plays an important role in resolving the conflict. Anomalies have identical interests. Identical interests नहीं होता है conflict. So the correct option is C. Which of the following is not a function of trade union? Not a function of trade union. Representing negotiation. Take lobbying for the labor-friendly laws. Increase employer profit margin. Promoting workers' education and welfare. Take. So this is the correct option because not is there. Consider the following elements of the tripartite structure of industrial relations in India. Industrial relations in India, tripartite. Government, employer and workers, judiciary, niyatiya. Following this. So the correct answer is this one. Which of the following is not a type of trade union? Craft union, general union, and industrial union. Trade union is the correct option. This is not. ये होती है trade political union. The second National Commission on Labour. Second National Commission on Labour has recommended abolition of all labour laws, formulation of umbrella legislation for the unorganized sector workers. This is the take. Centralization of the trade unions, elimination of the tripartite industrial relations. गलत है ये. So this and this is the answer. I think this one will be the best option. But the second हम देखेंगे पहले ये second क्या है. National Commission on Labour 1969. फिर second कब हुई? Recommended. The second National Commission on Labour has reviewed the labour situation after 3 decades of the first commission and gave reform orientation. Consolidations of the labour laws. A major purpose of groups and simplifying the existing labour laws in the broad cases, industrialization, wages, social security, and the safety of workers' conditions. The later influenced the 4 Labour Code enacted in this. Industrial relations recommended registration of the unions with a minimum membership threshold, suggesting 10% of the workers or the 100 workers. Slightly negotiation and union encouraging the collective bargaining and workers' participation. Strikes and lockout issue. However, the notes on the negotiation procedure. Employment flexibility advocates great flexibility in the labor market for promote the investment and the productivity, suggest to the easy registration less than 300. Which of the following act is a protective legislation? Which of the following act is a protective legislation? Protective legislation. Industries Dispute Act, Payments of Wages Act, Child Labeling Prohibition, and the Trade Unionism Act 1926. Protective legislation is this. Child Labor Protection Prohibition and the Regulation Act 1986. The term collective bargaining refers to negotiation between employers and the workers. The Code of Discipline in Industry was established during the Code of Discipline in Industry was established during second 5-year plan.